So from Berkeley, he went to Harvard. After Harvard, he went to a university, then to University of Chicago, and from Chicago to University of Colorado in Boulder, where I met him. I had gone to law school in Chicago, which was my wife's hometown, before moving back to Colorado. So I had some connections there, obviously, and Leonard Carlin was one of them. He was the one that referred me to Mrs. Tannenbaum. Well, Mrs. Tannenbaum started seeing Thomas Rhea. In fact, she's the one that sent Rhea to my office in the first place. And she was a woman of great mystery. There's no telling what she was, who she was, or anything else. If you look at her record, it shows one thing. But from my experience as a criminal defense lawyer dealing with federal agencies over a 50-year career, her FBI files shows every mark of an informer earning more credentials to infiltrate other organizations as either a criminal, a communist, etc. Remember, the Cold War was going on. This is the Eisenhower administration before the fall of the Cold War, and then it went into the Kennedy administration and then the Johnson administration. I met Mrs. Kennedy at the tail end of the Johnson administration. At that time, I was also working with the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, setting up treatments or experimenting or setting standards for drug abuse treatments. I also helped start the Head Start program in Boulder and a few other things dealing with nonprofit organizations. I mention this now because it's going to become relevant later. One of the people I worked with in Chicago was an activist named Saul Alinsky, who was very amusing and came up with some real imaginatory ideas for protest, like a piss-in at O'Hare Airport and a fart-in at the Rochester Symphony, among other things. Anyway, by the time I moved to Boulder, Johnson had resigned, and there was a three-way free-for-all within the Democratic Party for a nomination, one of which was Bobby Kennedy, whose campaign I worked on at that time. When Bobby died, the remainder got in a real bad fight. The fight was between MacArthur and Hubert Humphrey, ending in the famous Chicago Convention trial in 1968. So some of the ramifications of this incident, I'm going to backtrack. So right after the Chicago Convention, strange things started happening in Boulder regarding Thomas Rhea and Galia Tannenbaum. Now, during this period of time, Tannenbaum told me several different stories. We got suspicious one night and followed her from her house on 248 Lincoln to the new Customs House downtown Denver, which was also the headquarters for all the military recruitments, the military intelligence agencies, etc. She went to that place about 8 o'clock one night and came out about 7 o'clock the next morning, staying there overnight, working somewhere. I assumed she was working. Anyway, then she went home and went to sleep, and I went to work. Well, as things progressed, Rhea disappeared. And nobody knew where Thomas Rhea was. And this was a significant disappearance because of who he was and the politics going on at the time. Kissinger had diplomatic status, was trying to put together all kinds of deals. They were trying to get the Vietnam War to slow down a little bit, and there was all kinds of political sabotage going on. No matter what was going on or the cause, things were really in an uproar. And Thomas Rhea's disappearance caused a larger uproar.